This is Fantasy Football Today from CBSSports.com.
This is the Friday Fantasy Blitz on Fantasy Football Today, brought to you by Volkswagen. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Adam Azer with Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg, and Nathan Zagur. We're going to talk about last night's game. If only Golden Tate were on the Cleveland Browns. We almost
that
had another
game
one.
was pitiful.
Dennis, pitiful.
Pitiful.
Very good. Been saving that one for a while. We also have week 4.
I pitted the fool who started him last night.
Week 4 starter sit advice. Plenty to talk about on today's show. Let's bring in Nathan. What'd you think of that game last night?
Certainly a very competitive effort from the Cleveland Browns, and obviously with Joe Hayden out, they can't stop wide receivers. We saw Torrey Smith have a great game. Joe Flacco continues his excellent fantasy play as well. Anquan Boldin over 100 yards in this one, leading the game with 131 on 9 catches. So lots of good performances. Pretty much everybody you wanted to delivered. Flacco, Boldin, Smith, Trent Richardson, Ray Rice. Solid game, not ideal, but Dennis Pitta, as Jamie said, was pitiful.
Yeah. What did you think of Jamie's little puns there? Did you like
that?
That
was pretty good. I gave him some credit for that one on Twitter last night. He busted that out last night.
And on the podcast this morning. But you know what? They're good, so we'll stick with them. Flacco, guys, 1 passing, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 interception, 356 yards. Do you think he is ready to take the next step?
Ready. He's done it.
You think he is in the process of taking
He's
that
there.
step?
You know, the game against Philadelphia gives you a little bit of
Right.
pause for concern. You don't know if he can really actually go and put up big numbers on the road. Clearly at home he's fine. But I don't feel bad if Flacco's my starting quarterback right now.
I agree, and we'll see next week with that road test when he goes to face a very mediocre Chiefs defense next week.
Now, Anquan Boldin, Jamie, he was only started in 35% of leagues. He had a huge game, 9 catches for 131 yards. Also, Torrey Smith, 6 for 97 and a touchdown. What do you make of Boldin, though?
I think if he plays the Joe Hayden-less Browns on a weekly basis, he'll be very good. You know, you got to look at body of work at this point. You know, Anquan Boldin's clearly a possession receiver. He's not a big down the field threat. He had the touchdown in week 1, but you can argue that really wasn't a touchdown because he didn't actually catch it. You know, Boldin's a good bye-week replacement in PPR leagues. I don't know if I'd start him in many standard formats at this point, but you know that he's going to remain involved, and it's pretty clear. If they go away from Dennis Pitta, they're going to go toward Anquan Boldin. And keep one thing in mind, Torrey Smith did limp off the field. Looks like it's a very minor situation, but he limped off the field, did not play at the end of the fourth quarter in that game against the Browns last night. If there's something lingering there, then Boldin's value, I think, will skyrocket.
Hey, Nathan, what did you think of Trent Richardson? You can't argue with the touchdowns. 3 rushing touchdowns in his last 3 games. He's been good as a receiver. Do you worry at all about the yards per carry? Because he's struggling a little bit there.
Listen, he only has 1 game over 50 yards rushing now in 4 games here in the NFL, but you got to like a guy who doesn't necessarily need to rush the ball effectively to still be productive for your fantasy teams. Yes, he's getting the touchdown. I like the fact that he's on the field pretty much every single play. And what I really like about Trent Richardson is that in the last 3 games, he's really starting to blossom as a pass catcher. Actually, 4 catches for 57 yards in this one. He has 117 yards receiving in his last 3. So if you have a guy who can get you 40, 50 yards rushing and get you 30 to 40 yards receiving, you're locked into that 8 points as kind of a baseline, and then he has the opportunity to produce on top of that. He has not been below 20 carries plus targets in a game this year. So I like Trent Richardson. I think he's somebody we can start pretty much every week with confidence, knowing that his floor is higher than the floor of many other running backs just because of his workload. But I think it also speaks to the fact, and Dave pointed this out earlier in the week, the Baltimore Ravens defense is not what it used to be. And in fact, it's a much better pass defense than a run defense. And they've allowed now, I believe, 5 running back rushing touchdowns in just 4 games.
Yep, and 296 passing yards per game. So really, they're struggling all around. I don't know. Can you drop them?
I don't know if I'd drop him. It depends on who else is out there. There's other good defenses that are starting to make their way up. I think you just have to take a look at who's available.
Didn't they get you a touchdown last night?
I didn't have them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're not dropping the Ravens defense.
All right.
All right.
I'd drop him for the Cardinals.
Listen, we got an
Done that
interesting.
a couple days ago, though.
We've got an interesting Monday night situation with the Bears running backs, Matt Forte and Michael Bush. What do you do with those guys? They're both a little bit banged up right now. How do you approach it? Do you play it safe with somebody earlier in the week?
Well, earlier in the week has already happened. So either you started Ray Rice or Trent Richardson over these guys, or you
Sunday.
didn't. Well, let's see what happens on Friday and on Saturday. You know, the Bears are going to continue to practice through Saturday. They'll have the official injury report then. And if it looks like they're going to play, then I think it's okay to go with them. I think Forte, he says he's sprinting. He says he feels good. He says he's ready to go. Lovie Smith is taking a more cautious approach with him. I like the matchup. You look at the Cowboys' run defense. They've allowed 14 or more fantasy points to 2 of 3 running backs that they've faced. If Forte's back, I think he's good enough to start as a number 2 option.
Yeah, I think the one thing to keep in mind, though, because it is a Monday night game, if you have both guys, then start whoever starts for the Bears. If Forte's out of the picture, you can start Michael Bush. If Forte starts, I think you start him. But I would, to what you said, Adam, I probably would go with somebody else if I'm just a Forte owner or just a Bush owner, and just make sure that I get that type of production. We talked about it, going into last night's game. If you had Trent Richardson versus one of the Bears guys, and you had a good third option as well, I would clearly have played Richardson over those two guys.
Yeah.
All right, Nathan, you want to weigh in real quick?
Yeah, I think you got to be careful there on that Monday night game. I'd only could be comfortable going with Forte or Bush if I had both of those guys in my team. And I talked yesterday on Twitter about it. The uncertainty that you have now in Chicago, the uncertainty that we have in Buffalo, the uncertainty we have in Miami is what made me get Trent Richardson up into my top 24 before that game kicked off, because you knew what his role was going to be. And right now, there are many situations where we just don't know what's going to happen.
Well, there are so many injuries to talk about, and here's how we're going to do it today. We've got injuries to head, shoulder, knees, toes, hips, groins. We're going to go through all the injured players.
Now,
real
do you know that song? Because I know you weren't a big Sesame Street fan when you were a kid.
I've heard it, yeah. I haven't heard the hip groin version of it.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to hear you
maybe
sing
we can
that
write
song
that
sometime.
Sing that as a count.
What we're going to do is break out the confidence scale. How confident are you guys that these players will play? Not that you'd start them, just will they play? 0 to 10, 0, they're not going to play. 10, they're definitely going to play. I'm just going to read some names.
No,
and give
there's
me a
nothing in
number.
between?
Yes, there's something in between. Christian Ponder.
10.
10.
He's going to play.
10,
Ahmad Bradshaw.
10.
8.
10,
CJ Spiller.
1.
7.
4,
Tom Brady.
10.
10,
11.
Darren McFadden.
10,
9.
Jared Cook.
10.
5.
8,
Fred Jackson.
8.
7.
7,
Reggie Bush.
3.
5.
5,
Titus Young.
9.
10.
10,
He's going to play.
Jonathan Stewart.
10.
10,
9.
Kenny Britt.
3.
4.
4,
Pierre Garçon.
0.
5.
5,
Let's see what he does on Friday.
Aaron Hernandez.
Zip.
0,
Hakeem Nicks.
10.
8.
10,
Dwayne Bowe.
10,
6.
10.
Kyle Rudolph.
10,
10.
9.
You always have to say 9. Steven Jackson.
Like 5.
6.
7,
Greg Jennings.
W. I mean, this
8.
is silly right now. He's going to play. 10.
Jeremy Maclin.
10.
7.
Matthew Stafford.
Yes.
7.
And the sum of all the numbers that we just shouted out was.
Who cares?
All right. Then let's go into some bold statements
Yes,
for
that I
week
like.
4. Jamie, you get to kick it off here.
Yeah, I'm not worried about this whole report that Ryan Matthews is going to lose his job because he's fumbling the ball. He'll get it straightened out. He'll hold on to the ball, and he'll produce for you this week. The Kansas City Chiefs, their run defense is a little bit suspect in my opinion, and I think we'll see Ryan Matthews build off what he did last week. Give him the ball more than 10 times when he's averaging 4.4 yards per carry and when your quarterback is turning the ball over, and let him catch the ball more than 5 times because he's capable of it. So Ryan Matthews, I think, is a definite start this week. If you have any concerns about his job, his role, look at the guys behind him. It's Jackie Battle, it's
Yeah.
Corey Sprinkley, and it's Ronnie Brown.
You're not scared of Jackie Battle or Ronnie Brown coming
No.
and taking that job away because he fumbles?
No,
Then
Ryan Matthews is.
They're stuck with Matthews.
I understand the motivation level. Fine, he'll go out and he'll prove it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Matthews has a good game. In fact, I think if San Diego does anything to win in this game, it's going to be Matthews. This is going to sound crazy coming from me. Phillip Rivers will not have the game that everybody expects. He'll have lower expectations. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback this week. Kansas City's secondary really improved toward the end of their game last week against New Orleans. 2 of the 3 touchdowns Drew Brees threw, it was on a short field after a turnover. They've taken on 3 of the top 6 fantasy quarterbacks so far this season. You know where Phillip Rivers is? 27th.
Yeah, but where's Aaron Rodgers?
22nd.
Where's Tom Brady?
Ahead of both of them. It doesn't matter.
Cam
Rivers hasn't had a great season so
I'm not
far. His
disagreeing with you.
receivers have let him down.
Saw a lot of
His
quarterbacks have had
offensive
bad
line
seasons
has
so
let
far.
him down.
He's been the worst, though, of all of
He's
the top
been
12.
really,
Sure,
really
because he had a
bad.
2-point fantasy game last week.
And because part of the problem was that his receivers were dropping passes, his offensive line couldn't protect him. Jared Gaither might come back for this game. I'm a little nervous starting Phillip Rivers this week. I would trust some other guys.
Nathan, bold prediction.
For me, 2 guys that, we think are turning the clock back to like 2009 for Michael Turner and Cedric the Entertainer Benson will both be studs in Week 4, and this is purely one of the reasons why fantasy football is such a matchup-driven game at times. You have 2 guys who haven't had a monster game yet this year, although Turner was very good at cleaning up in the fourth quarter, which was great to see once the San Diego Chargers really basically laid down in that game. But he gets this week the Carolina Panthers, Cedric Benson, he gets New Orleans. They're the 2 worst run defenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
We will further explore the rankings later on in the show. Follow us on Twitter at CBS Fantasy FB, Facebook.com/CBS Sports Fantasy Football, and all the latest news, fantasynews.cbssports.com. Stick around, much more to
5,
come here on
3,
Fantasy Football
8,
Today.
7,
10,
Everybody.
6.
1.